Mechanic Resurrection is the sequel to the 2011 film The Mechanic, starring Jason Statham, and which the first film was a remake of a 1970s film starring Charles Bronson. Now, I remember when I first watched the first movie when it came out, and I gotta admit that I'm not too familiar with the original film, so if I've never seen the original Charles Bronson movie, but I have seen the Jason Statham movie, and I gotta admit that when I saw the first film, I like the idea behind it, because essentially the first film was you had Arthur Bishop, played by Jason Statham, who was a professional hitman who gets assigned to kill all these different targets and basically try to make it look like make them look like accidents. And I enjoyed parts of the first film, but I can say that the film was kind of forgettable because it wasn't really something that's really worth my time. It wasn't really something that I'd really remember. I mean, other than probably like a couple of shootouts and some of the cool like stages that they do, some of the cool setups they do with the death scenes, but with the accidents that happen. But other than that, the first Mechanic movie I wasn't really the biggest fan of, but it's always good to see Jason Statham, because I'll be honest, I'm a huge Jason Statham fan, and every time I see him in a movie, he is one of the most hardworking action stars to this day, who can still do his own stunts, and it's always just a hoot to always watch him beat the shit out of everybody, and I have a lot of respect for the guy as an actor, and I like that no matter what film that he's in, he can always do a great performance. And so with this one, Mechanic Resurrection, it kind of made me wonder why they were going to do pretty much a sequel to the first one, because the sequel is basically sets up where it's 5 years later, where Arthur Bishop is now living in Rio de Janeiro, and he gets confronted by this group that has been looking for him for a long time, and he gets set up, and then he goes to Thailand where he meets Jessica Alba, and then the movie kind of builds on a relationship with him and her, and they're trying to avoid all the stuff that's happening. And when I first heard about this film coming out, I just kind of was thinking in my head, like, all right, how are they going to do a sequel to the first film? I understand. Just from the trailers from this film, it just really, from what I was expecting, it looked like just your typical direct-to-video action flick. And I was pretty much right. This film is very just like, it's fun in parts, like it is more fun in parts than the first film was, but it's pretty much the same like how I felt with the first film. It's your typical action film that has a lot of shootouts, a lot of fight scenes with Jason Statham, and a very typical villain that we get introduced that takes Jessica Alba hostage in order for Jason Statham to commit these targets that he goes after. And there are some things that I do like with the film. Like, okay, I'll go into what I liked. I like Jason Statham. He's perfectly cast as Arthur Bishop again. He is your typical action guy, but he still has that coolness to him that really pulls off in everything I see him in. So he's never the problem with these kind of films. And I'll admit that there are some parts that really, when they actually get to the setting the deaths up and everything, where he actually stages the accidents, I really do like how they do it together. And the movie does kind of have some weird, unintentional, hilarious kind of moments where it's not necessarily like it's trying to go with like a really weird tone with it by trying to be so over the top. It's just downright hilarious. Like, not going to spoil anything, but there's a part where there's a death scene that happens that's so obviously CGI, it just makes it really worthwhile to watch because it's so god-awfully bad. So there are some of the dialogue parts are kind of funny. Like, every time that Jason Statham would kill a certain person, he would make a funny quip. He would make a funny one-liner. So the movie is trying to be more of a fun kind of movie. It's trying to take a more humorous approach than the first film did, because the first one was just downright very serious. And another thing I actually liked about the film too was it was cool seeing Tommy Lee Jones in the film, where in this is the first time probably since Under Siege where he's kind of playing it very fun-like, where you can tell he's having a great time. The only problem is, though, and they don't spend enough time with him to really elaborate much on his character because he comes really late in the movie. So that was a bummer. I mean, it was cool seeing him, but they didn't really do much with that character alone. So that did kind of bum me out because I was really looking forward to his appearance in the film. And another thing I do like too is some of the locations they take place look very beautiful. Like when they go to Rio de Janeiro and Thailand and some other parts where they go to these islands, it does look very well shot, and you can tell like they really had a great time working on these locations and everything. So if I ever got a chance to take a cruise, I'd be checking some of those places out. And another thing I can also enjoy that I like was the music's pretty good. I forgot how the theme song goes, but the theme song is really catchy, and it really adds to the vibe that they're going for with Jason Statham and how he's tracking down these guys. So those are really about the most nicest things I can say about it with the movie, because the rest of the film, it's really just forgettable as hell. Like, I'm not going to remember this movie after watching it, apart from the parts with all the executions and Tommy Lee Jones and all that, because a lot of my problems involve really with just the way it's platted out, because there's a lot of points in the film where where Jason Statham, it goes after Jessica Alba, who gets captured, has to do a job, and then goes to kill the guys, and then comes back in. It's very your rinse and repeat kind of vibe. They do this constantly throughout. And another problem I have is a majority of this action, a majority of her being captured takes place on this cruise ship, which I found I had a problem with. So I'm like, come on, can you please change the location? Because really, he goes to do a kill, comes back on the same ship. It's almost like they're just doing the same scene over and over again, and the only difference is that he's going after different people. You know, that really did kind of bore me in a lot of parts where he's just going to the same place all the time. And another problem too I have, and honestly, I mean, it really didn't surprise me, but Jessica Alba, she was awful in this. She really didn't add nothing to the movie. Like, they didn't really do anything with this character. I've never really been a big fan of Jessica Alba to begin with, and this one, she is just, as I would predict, she's very your typical damsel in distress where Jason Statham has to save her, and they do kind of this plot where she's kind of working for like this humanitarian work, but they give her really nothing to work with that really gets me invested with this character. So she was just flat out, and the way that she delivered her lines was really bad. Like, it was very hollow, and I just found her really just every time I wanted to see her, I just wanted to cut back to another action scene, you know. And plus, I didn't really think her and Jason Statham had much chemistry together, so that didn't help. And another thing too that I had a problem with was a lot of the action scenes, they go by like. Another problem I have too is some of the action beats that go on, they do kind of drag in some areas, and I was expecting a little bit more brutality in some parts, because other than probably like a few headshots here and there, the movie is your typical action movie. It doesn't really do anything beyond what you would expect out of just your standard direct-to-video R-rated movie. So this movie was pretty much, did I at least have fun in some parts? Yeah, when the action was going for the most part, when the action was going in some scenes when he's actually doing his mission and when he's doing like some covert ops, it was fun and how it went along, and there were some unintentional dialogue parts that kept me going, but that funness really dropped every time it cut back to the shit with Jessica Alba and them going back to that cruise ship the whole time. So the movie is just kind of going like, it's going decent to bad and then going back to decent again. So it's a very movie for me. So I'm just going to give it I'm giving like a 5.5 out of 10. It's not bad per se, but it's definitely not. It's not something I would recommend in theaters for. You know, there's plenty of other Jason Statham movies that I probably would rather watch over this one. You know, I can watch other movies like Safe or The Transporter or Crank. You know, there's other types of Jason Statham performances that I can like more, but with this one, you know, it's just something that I would probably just recommend as just a one-night rental at Redbox or something, you know, and that's it. I mean, if you like the first Mechanic movie, you might like this one. I mean, I'd say give it a watch if you like the first one, but it is what it is as far as just you have just a standard direct-to-video type action film coming out in late summer, and it is pretty much there to make money. And surprisingly, well, shockingly, it didn't make too much at the box office because it only made like 20 million. So, yeah, I just say just check the movie out on rental. If you're a hardcore Jason Statham fan, if you like to at least see him if you like to see him beating the shit out of people, you know, and doing a lot of cool stunts, I'd say at least go for that. But otherwise, you are getting your cliche-ridden action movie. So that's really all I've got. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you like what you see here, you can check out more of my videos on YouTube, and I'll be having more videos coming up here soon. I'll see you guys later.